Chapter 12 Showing Validation Errors. Currently, when we have errors in form submission, we do not display them to the user but just redirect them to another page. This is inappropriate as it does not inform the user that they have entered invalid data. They might think that what they have entered has gone through successfully, when in fact the process has failed. A better solution would be to straight away display validation errors to the user so that they can resubmit. In this chapter, we will see how to show validation error in forms. Currently in store user.js, we have the following code: const user require, const path require path, and then we have a module export that, and then we have a user.create error user, and then with if error return, redirect the user to register. So if there's an error, we redirect the user to the register page, and then if the user is created successfully, we redirect them to the index page. The error object actually provides us with validation error notifications that we can work with to display the errors. Let's console log the error object to explore what we have. So with these errors, if the user does not enter their username, they'll have a message that says that will log path username is required, and if they do not punch in the password, it will give them a message password is required. And then if the user couldn't be validated, it will give user validation failed. That's the message that it will give. That is, error would contain a list of individual error objects with keys, username, and password, which are respective fields that have validation errors. If username is filled in and valid, we will have just the error key for password. We now format the errors so that we can present them to the user. Because object.keys gives us all the keys in the error objects, we can do the following to get the individual error messages. So we add if error object keys error.error and then map error keys. So this is basically an array of the errors that are there, that could possibly be there. We map through the errors array keys, and for each of them access the keys error message property. If you log them to the console, you get something like this. Okay. Displaying validation errors in template. How do we make messages available to the view when redirecting? When we redirect using return, response redirect, author register. We do so by assigning error messages to a variable and saving it to our session with the below codes. So instead of before it was just const, now we add const validation errors that will basically save the errors into the validation error variable, and then we also add request session validation errors to it. We will look for the validation errors. And in controllers new.js, we retrieve the errors from the session with request session validation errors and pass it into register EJS. Next, in register EJS, we display the error messages at the top of our form with the below code placed above the form action. So on our form, we have if errors is not null and errors length is greater than 0. So basically, if there is an error, it loops through basically the error, and then it will display the error just above the form where the user has to put in their username and password. First, we check that the errors array passed in from new user is not null and has at least one error item. If errors is null or it's empty, it means that there is no error and we can continue with the form submission. If there's at least one item in the errors array, we look through it, and for each error we display them with the class list group item danger to make the error appear danger red. Now when you run your app, try submitting the new user form, and if there are any validation errors, it will appear. Which one? So if we have just punched in the username with no password, and then it flashes the message, please provide password. So it flashes the error, please provide password. Duplicate entry error. We meet with one critical error, however. If we enter non-unique user, example user 1, which already exists in the database, our app crashes. This is because we get a mongoose validation error when you attempt to violate a unique constraint rather than an E1100 error from MongoDB. The mongoose unique validator package helps us make such error handling easier. First, install the package npm install. So we have installed mongoose unique validator. And then apply it to models user.js. So here we have imported or required our mongoose unique validator. And then we have it as a plugin as well. The unique validator is a plugin. Now when you try to save a user, the unique validator will check for a duplicate database entry and report them just like any other validation error. So with the unique validator, it will check if there's basically a similar entry or a unique entry in the database that already exists. So if a username already exists, it will give an error because they have to be unique, the usernames. Flashing error messages from session. Because we are saving the error messages in the session, however, and because a session is permanent, it means that in the next request lifecycle, the session will still be there. That is, the error notifications are not flashed away when the user revisits the form after a successful submission. Thus, we need the errors data to expire after the current request lifecycle, and this is what we refer to as flashing, where we don't want the data to be available after the next request. We will do this with a package called Connect Flash. Connect Flash provides a special area of the session used for storing messages. Messages can be written to this area and cleared after being displayed to the user. So we first install Flash and Connect Flash, and then we require Connect Flash in our index as well. And then in our store user.js, we change the request session to a request flash validation errors. So instead of the message just staying there, it will flash, and then when a request is made again, it will disappear. With the flash method, where all requests will have a request flash function that can be used for flash messages. In Flash, you specify that validation errors will be stored in the validation error key. To retrieve the errors and present them in the view, make the changes in user.js. So it will flash, basically it will flash the error, the validation errors, and save them into errors. Customizing error message. Currently, the error being shown to the user is not very useful as it's too technical for them to understand. We should be providing clearer error messages like please provide username for them to rectify the error. To provide customized messages, go to user models user.js schema and make the following changes. So the changes now we have username of type string, and then it's required. If the user punches in a username, then it will be true, and then if there's no username, they will get a flash message that says please provide username. The same thing will happen with the password because they are required. Persist request data on form. Currently, when the user fills in data into the form, tries to submit it, and there is an error. All the data keyed in is removed and the user has to retype the data in. A better user experience would be that the data keyed in should stay and not be removed even if there have been validation errors. To keep the data keyed in, we also flash request body which contains the data keyed into the form. In controllers store user.js at the following line. Request flash, so data request body. So here we basically store the username and the password so that it doesn't disappear. We store request body in the data key of Flash. Next thing at the following in controllers in your user.js, at the following codes in bold. So with this code, if we try logging request flash data to the console, we realize that request flash data returns as an array with the data in the first element. Thus, we access it using request flash data 0. We then check if request flash data is undefined, which will be the case whenever we first visit the new user form. If it's not undefined, only then we assign the username and password fields. Note that the username and password fields are initialized with a blank string. This is to avoid the form from throwing an error saying that the value is null or undefined. Now that we have sent username and password values to register EJS in it, fill in the data values into value property of the input type. So this is where the values, we will add the value and the password. When you run the app now and the user fills in data in the form, tries to submit it, and there's a validation error, the data keyed in will be preserved and the user doesn't have to retype the data in. So this is the example. So we typed in the username and didn't type in the password, and we had a validation error. Even after the validation error, the username wasn't removed, it stayed behind. Now that you have implemented form validation display or validation errors and persisting form data, implement the same for the create blog post form. Also implement the notification of error when login is unsuccessful and login failed due to incorrect password.